The United States of America will tomorrow hold its presidential election voting day, with millions of voters having already cast their votes through postal voting or early voting systems. Now, for the past few months, a Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump and the Democrat candidate and current Vice President Kamala Harris have been campaigning extensively, crisscrossing the country to garner every vote they can. Now, various polls have predicted a very tight race to the White House, with the battle states and the Electoral College system determining who will be elected as number 47. And to give us his analysis on the significance of America's presidential elections, we're joined virtually now by Professor Gilbert Khadiagala, who's Emeritus Professor of International Relations at Wits University. Professor Khadiagala, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So first off, Prof, if we could just look at the importance of these elections and why it is so significant in terms of who is actually elected President of the United States of America.
Thanks. The U.S. is a big power globally, and therefore it's an important player, and everybody takes interest in American politics. So the elections are part of a global theater. People are looking at who is going to be in the White House, because the U.S. shapes a lot of the economic and political and military trends globally. So that kind of leadership that the U.S. has had for many years projects it into, as I said, the world attention. And it becomes therefore very important that people are interested in who is going to be in the White House. So these elections, I think, symbolize just the very power of the United States because of the global attention focused on who is going to be the leader, who is going to shape the global agenda. Of course, not alone, but with the rest of the other actors that the U.S. has worked with and the people it has to deal with, particularly Russia and China and other global powers. So everybody is focused on the election because it's important to know who is going to sit at the table from the American side.
Professor, in looking at the various polls, they've all come out and said this is going to go right down to the wire. And in a country of 344 million people, these two candidates, Trump and Harris, what can we say about them, to each their strengths and their weaknesses going into this poll?
The strength of Trump is that he's been here before. He was president for 4 years, and he commands a very large following among what people call the conservatives, because he has a very conservative agenda that has been able to attract quite a significant number of people. So he is a very serious candidate. Just by virtue of his personality also. He's a polarizing figure, but there are some Americans who love polarization, and they want people who tell the truth and who speak loudly and all that. So he has the gravitas going into the election. Kamala Harris is a new kid on the block, if we could put it. She was just selected 2 months ago. She's what I describe as an accidental candidate because she was not expected to be running when Joe Biden dropped out. Then the Democrats had no choice but to hoist her as a candidate. But she's done very well. She has mobilize the kind of what you call Obama constituency. Obama has been very important in the election. Obama has gone throughout the country campaigning for her. So one can describe as a kind of an Obama candidate in terms of the mobilizing strategy. She's a woman of color. She's a new person on the American scene, one of the few women to be the first woman to be a serious contender for the position. And I think she's done an excellent job of selling her agenda of unity, of moderation, of women's rights and healthcare, all these democratic selling issues that, in fact, she's latching onto.
And speaking about voter demographics, Prof, how are the different demographic groups pertaining to age, race, education levels, how are these likely to impact the outcome of this year's election? Have you noted any surprising trends at this stage?
The big trend is that Trump is losing the women vote. And understandably, because he said quite a number of things that do not, in fact, go well with women. And of course, the Republican, especially on issues like women's rights, abortion, and so on, have already, in fact, garnered a lot of support for Kamala Harris from women. But of course, Trump has the largest support from white men, particularly from rural areas, who tend to be more conservative, who tend to be what you describe as the MAGA kind, make America great. They think that the Democrats haven't done a very good job. So that demographic is clearly very Republican, and is going to have an impact on the election, because if Trump can mobilize the rural white men, he will actually do very well. On the other hand, if Kamala Harris can, in fact, get the women's vote, if they can go out and vote, it is going to make a significant difference. You have other actors, such as the youth, who this time look like they are going for Kamala Harris. You have the black voters, African American voters, who of course will have to vote for her because of her background. But now there is a big contest about the Latino voters, that's people of Latin American background, who are important voters. Trump has said, or one of Trump's supporters has said bad things about it. And then it's beginning to look like in states such as Pennsylvania, they may be moving towards maybe Kamala Harris because of the bad things that one of them said about Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is predominantly Latin American. So the demographics matter here, but I think we have to take into account what the voter turnout is going to be. It's already looking like it's going to be a very competitive process. 70 to 80 million people have already voted, and that's a huge number. It has never been done before. So it's important that it shows the trend that there are many people who are going to show up tomorrow. So we'll have to see who of the many people is going to show up.
Speaking of voter turnout, there has been significant changes in voter turnout patterns over the years. And what could that mean for this particular election? The last election, the voter turnout was 66.6%. How important, how significant a factor is that likely to be in this election, Prof?
It is going to be important, one, because of Trump. I think Trump has complained that he lost the election in 2020, or he didn't lose that election. So his supporters are bound really to come out in big numbers to demonstrate that 2022 was just a mistake. So I think they want to show that if they can, in fact, go out in large numbers, it will be important to get their candidate back into the White House. On the other hand, on Kamala Harris's side, what you see is the minority voters mobilized this time to say, we'll go out. The women voters are going to go out and say, this is our opportunity, in fact, to make a difference in this election. This is an opportunity to get Harris in the presidency, because she'll be making history if she does get to to the White House. So there are many dynamics working here, but I think they are good dynamics because everybody is fired, everybody is interested, and everybody is animated about this election. So I can see the voter turnout going probably to 72%, which is not a bad number, come to think of it.
Actually, quite a good number. Professor Khadiagala, thanks so much for your time this morning. And as we said, big focus on the election in the United States all this week on SABC News. But thanks so much to Professor Gilbert Khadiagala, Emeritus Professor of International Relations at Wits University, giving us his analysis on the United States of America's presidential election. As he said there, 80 million people already cast their ballots, and of course the majority of Americans going to the ballot boxes tomorrow. We need to take a quick break before we bring you your news at 8.